Breathing is a starting point for gaining immense control over your body, higher states of consciousness which are not available to us otherwise. I did not realize that by just few weeks of concentrated focus on breathing, I'll be able to hold my breath for 3 minutes. By taking control for breathing, we can exert indirect control to a variety of biological processes inside our body. In the middle of the winter and turning your morning shower all the way to the right with the cold water pouring on your body, one of the most powerful sight which demonstrates the power of breathing is watching a Tibetan Buddhist monk practicing Tumo breathing. Science shows that even one slow, deliberate, mindful breath can alter your nervous system. Box breathing is a go-to tool for everybody from Navy SEALs to doctors. The best thing about breathing Hello, I am Mukesh Bansal, founder of Mintra and Cult.fit. Welcome to SparX. SparX is for people who want to do big things in life. I have learned that to do big things in life, you have to operate at 3 different levels. First and foremost, very strong foundation. Building these superpowers which allows you to do great things in short period of time. Second, you need to indulge in deep curiosity. If you understand science, history, policy, economics, you can find your position in the world and spot opportunities before other people. Third, you need to develop a lot of tools for building at scale. How do you self-manage your own productivity? How do you manage people? How you work with people? How do people build very large organizations at scale? In this podcast, we talk to a lot of practitioners. We look at science or everything relevant. We go back to ancient wisdom to see what are time-tested tools. And we talk about a lot of examples of how you can practice all these things in your everyday life. Today's episode, I want to talk about why breathing can be a superpower. In our last episode, we discussed what incredible impact fasting can have on your biology, on mental state, on overall management of your health and fitness. I think breathing is a superpower of next level. It is no wonder that since ancient times, yogis, monks, spiritual seekers of all kinds, and finally modern science have all come to same conclusion. Breathing is a starting point for gaining immense control over your body, your psychology, your mental states, even higher states of consciousness which are not available to us otherwise. I've been reading about breathing for the longest period of time. I've seen scientific research and studies. I've even practiced every now and then. But I started practicing, deliberately learning how to breathe better only few months ago. I've been working with the teacher Arjun Lal, who runs his breathing studio in Bangalore. He conducts this not only hour-long classes, but multi-hour workshops to help you understand different type of breathing patterns, what each different breathing style can do to your body and mind, and through that unlocking much better relationship that you have with your own body and your own mind. I knew breathing can be powerful, but what I did not realize that by just few weeks of concentrated focus on breathing, I'll be able to hold my breath for 3 minutes, which I did just this morning. My earlier record was max 1 minute, 1 minute 15 seconds maybe. Today, after a session of breathing exercises, Arjun just asked me to hold my breath on inhale, and by the time he asked me to exhale, 3 minutes were up. Just to further prove the power of what breathing can do, usually after a breathing session, we do this cold ice plunge around 7-8 degrees centigrade temperature. Let me tell you, it is quite cold. If you have not done ice plunge before, you probably can't appreciate, but think of, in the middle of the winter and turning your morning shower all the way to the right with the cold water pouring on your body and then 10 times worse. I've been doing cold plunge for almost 10 years now. It is a great recovery protocol. There is a lot of science that backs up the benefit of cold plunge. So while I'm not foreign to cold plunges, I'll typically go in for about 20-30 seconds and I cannot take it anymore, so I'll have to step out. What Arshun told me that if you combine cold plunge with breathing exercises, you can stay in the water much longer. So I gave it a shot this morning. And can you guess it? I was in the cold plunge for over 5 minutes. As they say, seeing is believing. Believing, sometime doing is even more believing. And if you asked me 12 hours ago, can I hold my breath for 3 minutes? Answer would have been no. If you ask me if I can stay in ice cold water for 5 minutes, answer would have been no. But just with few weeks of breathing exercise, I'm able to do it easily. And more importantly, I'm very enthusiastic to really explore the connection of breathing with our biology to a lot more. In the world of free diving, there are people who will dive up to a depth of 100 meters below water and hold their breath for something between 5 to 8 minutes. And they do this as a routine. Until recently, it was considered that that's probably the maximum that one can hold their breath underwater. David Blaine, who is a magician, stunt artist, and someone who is obsessed about pushing the limits of his body beyond whatever we may think is humanly possible. He holds the world record for holding his breath for nearly 25 minutes. That's obviously after intense training, under medical supervision. But what it goes to show that we probably have enormous control over our breathing, what we can do with our body through breathing, and with deliberate practice, we can unlock a lot of the superpowers, and they have incredible benefits across variety of things that all of us will want in our life. In today's episode, we want to cover all these aspects in detail. Let me start by why breathing is so important, why people from all ages have always gravitated towards exploiting breathing as the superpower tool. If you think about this, in our body, there is only one biological function which is under the control of both conscious mind. What I mean by conscious is that you can choose to control it. For example, if I want to breathe slowly, I can do that. If I want to breathe fast, I can do that. But if I'm not paying attention to my breathing, the unconscious mind takes over and makes sure it keeps us breathing a certain rhythm, because we obviously need oxygen periodically to be able to function. But other functions of the body cannot be controlled by both conscious and subconscious mind. Take an example of your heart rate. You can't increase your heart rate on demand. Or your body temperature. Again, you cannot increase just by thinking about raising or lowering your body temperature. But whenever we choose, we can take control of our breathing. What people have realized, both through variety of ancient cultural practices around the world, that by taking control of our breathing, we can exert indirect control to a variety of biological processes inside our body. And using this power, we can rewire our nervous system, we can control our heart rate variability, we can control various brain waves. As you probably know, that our brain operates in 4 different brain waves, from alpha all the way to delta waves. These brain waves represent different level of relaxation, different levels of connection within ourselves. By taking control of our breathing and practicing different type of exercises, we can influence various aspects of our mind and body. One of the most powerful sight which demonstrates the power of breathing is watching a Tibetan Buddhist monk practicing what is known as Tummo breathing. Tummo breathing is very deep rhythmic breathing where these monks are able to raise their body temperature considerably. Now, this has been done under scientific supervision. This has been recorded. Imagine a Buddhist monk in the middle of the winter sitting on the snow in sub-zero temperature, wrapped with ice-cold wet blanket. Now, most of us will not want to be in the situation, but it's almost nothing for these monks. What they do, they start in this posture, they start engaging in Tummo breathing, start raising their body temperature slowly. And after some time, the wet blanket starts to get warmer and warmer. the water starts to evaporate, and after an hour, the wet blanket in this ice cold environment is completely dry. That's the power of breath for you. That's why so many people have been going back to their breath again and again for thousands of years. And that's why the lots of scientific studies are also converging on this point that breath is deeply integral to our health. Breath also puts enormous power in our hands to manage our health. We can not only boost immunity, improve our mental state, even cure some disease at times, and generally feel really good. In this episode, I'm going to cover science of breathing, what we have learned from variety of studies, what is the biology of breathing, what are different breathing techniques, and how you can consider incorporating breathing in your own life for developing one more superpower, which will come in good stead for whatever you may want to do in life. One of the most profound gifts of India to the world is practice of yoga. Now, for most of us, we think yoga is a series of asanas. It's some kind of fitness routine, which it is, but yoga is a lot more. Sage Patanjali defined yoga in 8 limbs or 8 different components. First component is yama, which is ethical restraints, knowing what is right and wrong and being able to control yourself. Niyama, which is everyday routine. We all need great routine. Only then you come to asana, which is the third limb. Asana is about all these postures, variety of yoga exercises. Fourth limb is pranayam, breath control. It is an integral part of what comes next. And what comes next is fifth limb is pratyahara, which is sense withdrawal. You are able to detach yourself from senses, create some distance between what your senses are seeing, feeling, and how you respond to that. There is a bit of gap between you reacting to any impulse may coming from outside. Dharana, which is concentration. Can you focus on one thing for a prolonged period of time? And that's the starting practice for seventh limb, which is dhyana or meditation. And finally, eighth limb is samadhi, which is you achieve some kind of deep awareness, enlightenment, freedom from everyday experiences for a different, altogether state of bliss. Maybe samadhi is beyond the reach for most of us, but if you think about it, it's a very logical system. It starts with something as simple as doing the right thing, knowing what right and wrong is, and being able to do that all the way to samadhi stage. But in between, the fourth limb, pranayama, is super important. The entire science of pranayama, which is in Sanskrit, what it means is prana means life force. So being able to control your life force enables you to do all kind of things, whether it's better physical health or a spiritual quest or being in a better mental state. All of those paths are unlocked through practice of breathing. In pranayama, there are dozens of different breathing exercises. All these exercises have been designed with different objectives. They're supposed to be done at different times of the day. And depending upon what your health goals are, what your interests are, you can incorporate one or many of these pranayama exercises throughout the day. If you think about how incredibly powerful breathing is, and also the fact that it is an absolutely free tool, it's available to all of us any time of the day, anywhere we are. It is estimated that we take about 25,000 breaths every single day. That's a lot of breathing. We have to breathe to survive. Now, if you are able to translate even a little bit of that into deliberate, mindful practice, you can see incredible changes within you. The best thing about breathing, it's a free tool. You don't have to pay anything to anybody. You don't need to buy gadgets. You don't even have to learn very complicated skills. The breathing practice can start something as simple as just breathe slowly, inhale slowly, and exhale slowly. So let's do one now. Let's say you're going to breathe for 4 seconds inhale and 4 seconds exhale. So let's do this. That's only 8 seconds, one breath. Science shows that even one slow, deliberate, mindful breath can alter your nervous system. If you are feeling upset, if you are feeling angry, if you are feeling stressed, if you can only remember to take few slow, deep breaths, you will see noticeable change in your mental state. There is something that's known as box breathing. It's you breathe in cycle of 4 or 5 seconds. The way box breathing works is you inhale for 4 or 5 seconds, you hold for same period of time, you exhale for again same 4 or 5 seconds, and again you hold for 4 or 5 seconds. So you can think of like a box. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. So let's try one round of 5-second box breathing, starting now. So that's roughly 20 seconds. My count might be off a little bit. You can do it with a stopwatch. You can count slowly 1, 2, 3, 4 in your head. Sometimes I combine box breathing in my walking. So I'll just walk 5 steps for inhale, 5 steps hold, and the 5 steps exhale, 5 steps hold. Now box breathing is a go-to tool for everybody from Navy SEALs to doctors who work in high stress environment to firefighters, because they have to make split-second decisions in very difficult situations, to hostage negotiators. It's becoming a mandatory part of Navy SEAL training in the US. It's a very, very simple but powerful tool. Any of us can learn to practice this tool and immediately create some distance between what is happening around us, which may, without filter, might be affecting our mental states, to creating this distance between what's happening out there versus what you're feeling inside. What is the science behind slow breathing? So we have our nervous system has 2 parts. One is our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight nervous system. And this is the part of biology that evolved as part of our survival struggle in the jungle. We would often encounter this fight or flight situations. We have to make a split-second decision. In those situations, our cortisol need to be pumping high. We need to be highly alert. We need to be in the fighting mode. And that was great, because if you are facing a genuine life-threatening situation, you ought to be able to activate your sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system, on the other hand, is exactly reverse, where we feel very calm. We feel a sense of oneness with the community, environment, fellow human beings, almost worry-free, carefree situation. And most of the time, even going back to our struggle for survival days in the jungle, mostly it is our parasympathetic nervous system, unless we see a sign of danger. Now, with modern lifestyle, we find ourselves in an environment which is almost never life-threatening, but even minor situations such that you get a wrong coffee at Starbucks, or you are standing in the queue and the queue is not moving, the barista is busy doing something on his or her phone, or you're watching a movie and someone in the queue behind you is busy with speaking to phone, disturbing your experience of watching the movie. Someone cuts you off the road and suddenly our blood pressure spikes, we feel stressed, we feel angry, we want to yell, and that is your sympathetic nervous system. Now, if you slowly cultivate the practice of becoming aware about your breath, you can take control of these situations. When you encounter that scene which is making your blood boil, if you are able to take few slow deep breaths, your parasympathetic nervous system will start to get activated. You will start to feel calm. You will be in lot more in control. I was talking to Arjun and he explained this idea to me that anger is almost like a train of emotions. What he means by that is whenever we feel anger, afterwards we feel whole flurry of other emotions. We may feel embarrassed for being angry or bursting out. We may feel a sense of guilt for being a jerk, saying things that we didn't intend to say. We may want to go back and apologize. We may feel even low self-worth that, why do I lose my cool and control? You may even laugh at yourself at, getting so upset for usually things which are so silly. You can avoid that entire train of emotions by indulging in some kind of mindful breathing when you feel angry or stressed or just not in control of situations. Most ultra athletes around the world, they make it a habit to have very, very strong breathing protocols, breathing practices, especially before the crunch day. 10 minutes before, let's say you're going to participate in a 100-meter or 200-meter sprint, the decision is going to be, the final outcome will be decided by probably 1/100th of a second or even lesser. How do you bring your full presence, highest performance self to that event? These ultra athletes recognize that by practicing into various mindfulness breathing activities, they can bring them to be completely present in the moment, not thinking about past, not thinking about future, what winning will do to you or what losing will do to you, just being fully present in the moment, being fully relaxed and able to give 100%. Now, won't most of us want to do that? If you're a knowledge worker like me, your most of the day is either trying to do something, sitting in front of computer, we are trying to think of a complex idea, problem solve, or you are working with people. If you're in a meeting in the room, what's really annoying and hopefully less annoying if you're able to do deep breathing in the moment is when people are busy doing other things, they're on the laptop, looking at something, the phone, or pretending to talk to you while their mind is somewhere else. And that's not a great experience. If we can bring our complete self to that meeting, to that deliverable, to that task, we can perform at very different level. If elite athletes see the need to be able to do that, I think you and I are no different. We can benefit immensely in our everyday work. Going back to parasympathetic nervous system. So box breathing is one way to slow it down, but there are many variations you can try for yourself. So there is another method which is commonly known as 4-7-8 method, which calms you down even faster. The way 4-7-8 works is you slowly inhale for 4 seconds, then you hold your breath for 7 seconds, and finally you exhale for 8 seconds. So 4 seconds slow inhale, 7 seconds hold, 8 seconds slow exhale. Dr. Andrew Weil designed this 4-7-8 technique in 1970s. He was working with patients who were dealing with chronic stress, insomnia, which was further compounding their medical condition. He noticed then when patients are able to engage in this 4-7-8 breathing pattern, they are able to feel less stressed, they are able to fall asleep easily, and they are able to stay asleep in deep state of sleep for much longer period of time. Since then, this protocol has been adopted by a lot of wellness and medical practitioners, but this is just one of many techniques. The idea is all breathing boils down to 4 things in our control. We can inhale as slowly or as fast we would like. We can hold our breath. We can again exhale at whatever pace we want to be. And again, after exhaling, we can hold. You can play with all these 4 parameters, all the 4 permutations, and there are many protocols available from Western medicine, from various scientific studies. We have many dozens of protocols available from Eastern practices, and all of them have a role to play. What may work for you may not work for me. It's almost like a buffet of breathing techniques that are available to us. If you start from the vantage point of, I want to develop breathing as a superpower for myself, I want to learn some of these techniques, and I want to incorporate these techniques in my everyday life. There is no dearth of choices. There's a lot of content available. One of the biggest things that happened for science and popularity of breath is James Nestor's book called Breathe. Now, this book came out just few months into pandemic, and at the time, people were obviously struggling with their breath, walking around with mask everywhere, and there's a lot of fear of that. What if masks were to trap some carbon dioxide inside, and while we are managing to avoid inhaling the virus, but maybe we are compromising our breathing. Around that time, the book Breath, which by the way has been in the works for 10 years, James Nestor, I believe, has done a huge service to humanity in writing this book. What he did was he looked into both the ancient practice of breathing in a lot of systematic detail. He traveled around the world, talked to a lot of practitioners, breathwork teachers, as well as he consumed most of the modern research that's available. He worked with many scientists, and he's able to come at it from both angles. He narrates a lot of outstanding stories around this. He cites a lot of research in many details, and he gives a lot of practical advice about variety of breathing techniques. If by end of this episode you are convinced that you want to do something about breathing, I will very strongly encourage you to check out this book. I want to quote one story from the book which James Nestor himself underwent. He partnered with some pulmonologist scientist at Stanford University. There has been this debate for a long time in the breathing science and circles. What does nasal breathing do to our health versus what does mouth breathing do to our health? I remember even growing up as a child, I heard some of the elders telling us that the more you breathe from the nose, the better. Obviously, I had no idea why people were saying that. What James Nestor realized that when he traveled around the world and spent time with tribal societies, mothers will have this tendency, if they see their infant sleeping and the mouth is open, they will gently pinch his or her lips shut so that the infant is forced to breathe from nose. They clearly know something about human biology and the fact that why nasal breathing is really important for us. So what James Nestor did in this experiment, which I don't think most of us can or should do, is he got both of his nostrils plugged for 10 days. To explain what that means is there were these silicone gels which were inserted in both of his nostrils and they were shut. So which means he has to both inhale and exhale through his mouth the entire day. And just within few hours of doing that, he started feeling terrible. Sleep was difficult. After a day or two, he started to feel this mental fog, high blood pressure, high stress. Just overall well-being started to go down. And towards the end of 10 days, both him and another person who was participating in the study were completely out of sorts. They developed pretty much continuous snoring through the night. They developed sleep apnea, and needless to say, they were very relieved when the silicone gel was removed after 10 days. And then they did the reverse. For next many days, they exclusively focused on breathing only through their nose. And all those bad symptoms disappeared. They started to feel a lot better. Their blood work improved, their resting heart rate improved, blood pressure improved, and so on. That's one very stark example right there of what mouth breathing and nasal breathing can do to us. Just to be super clear about the science and biological mechanism, most people think of nasal breathing is how breathing is supposed to be. Nose is designed very specifically to perform a lot of critical biological function. To first of all, to filter the air we are breathing, to warm it up so that by the time it hits the lungs, it's nearly the same temperature that our lungs are, so it's not a shock to our system. It also promotes creation of NO2, nitrogen dioxide, which plays a big role in how far our lungs can expand. It's a critical ingredient for healthy breathing. So why are we able to breathe from our mouths? It's just a backup mechanism for something as critical as breathing. without which we cannot survive beyond few minutes. We better have a backup system in case of injury, in case of your nose is getting plugged for because of poor health. But we are not supposed to be mouth breathers. What has happened with modern lifestyle, a lot of people have developed this tendency to fall back to mouth breathing as a habit. And that's one of the key things that's over a period of time making our breathing really bad and promoting development of variety of ailments that we would rather not have. How do you reverse that? The easiest way to reverse that is to learn how to start doing nasal breathing again. There are many things you can do. In pranayam, this technique of anulom vilom is outstanding technique. I did that this morning. In fact, I try to do whenever I can. You might have done it as a kid or in yoga classes, where you slowly inhale through one nostril, hold, exhale through other nostril, hold, again inhale to the other nostril, and repeat the cycle for 10 to 20 cycles. That teaches your nose and brain to learn how to be able to breathe comfortably with each nostril. There is this practice of Kapalbhati, which literally translates into shining forehead. I did Kapalbhati also this morning. We can see a little bit of clip of that. This is very forceful breathing, engaging your diaphragm deliberately. What Kapalbhati does is kind of starts to heat up your body from inside, from your belly towards your chest. But what is also doing through this forceful movement is strengthening your lungs and strengthening your diaphragm so that we become much more powerful breathers. It's almost same mechanism that if you ever indulge in strength training, when you take a dumbbell and we keep doing these bicep curls, we are stimulating our bicep muscles that, look, there is a need for you to grow in size because I expect to lift heavy weight, which today I'm not able to do. Similarly, when you do exercise like Kapalbhati, you are very forcefully inhaling and exhaling, making your diaphragm move up and down, your lungs expand and contract, which sends the same stimulus to your brain that it's time to strengthen these muscles. Let me talk about connection of breathing with various mental states. In 60s, as you probably know, the hippies movement was in a full upswing, and LSD was a go-to drug for pretty much everyone to access what's known as altered states of consciousness. Now, that is a whole new subject. At some point, perhaps I should do an episode on that. Most of us, on an everyday basis, we have this kind of conscious mental state where we are mostly in control of what's going on. We understand what's going on, and we are also able to observe what we are doing, what other people are doing. But there are these many different type of altered states that historically people have tried to access them, mostly using substances such as LSD, various other hallucinogens, but also through things like rhythmic dance movements, through music, and also through breathing. So in 60s, at some point, US government, FDA banned LSD, and suddenly all these hippies were out of their go-to tool for accessing these altered states. At the time, Dr. Stanislav Grof, who was doing research on LSD, he had learned from some of the tribal cultures that these altered states can also be achieved through combination of music and breath work. So he developed what's known as holotropic breathing. I am not kidding. Towards the end of the session, I genuinely felt that I'm floating. When you think about all these monks having the feeling of out-of-body experience or levitating on ground, perhaps this is holotropic breathing at different level. If you've heard of something called Sudarshan Kriya, which is a very significant exercise in art of living tradition, where they gradually and systematically teach you how to engage in this, what's scientifically known as hyperventilation, the act of injecting a lot of air, exhaling a lot of air, and repeating it. It builds up both a lot of oxygen saturation in your body as well as you produce a lot of carbon dioxide. As a result, you start feeling very differently. Earlier practice such that, what will happen in ashram of Osho, the hyperventilation was a huge part of activating these higher states of consciousness. Now you can try it out. There are very milder forms of trying it out, but I think there is enough and more evidence both from variety of practices, various cultures around the world, and again what we know from science, that these altered states of consciousness are within our reach by engaging in this deliberate holotropic breathing whenever we want. I immensely enjoyed my experience this morning. I am planning to continue to work with Arjun to try this hyperventilation type of breathing for 15-20 minutes, perhaps 30 minutes one day, and see what I'm able to feel inside my brain. I have no interest in hallucinogens. I think they might be a portal to altered states, but they also come with a lot of possible side effects and potential addiction, so on. So yeah, if breathing can be a tool to access the altered states, why not? When we think of breathing, we think breathing is all about oxygen, how much oxygen we can intake and absorb. During pandemic, when we were doing this oxygen saturation test, everyone learned that we want our oxygen saturation to be in the high 90s, which is absolutely correct. But breathing is a two-sided coin. One side of that coin is obviously oxygen, but other side is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is absolutely critical for regulating many biological mechanisms involved in breathing. Developing high CO2 tolerance is super critical to be able to slow down your breathing, to be able to breathe very deeply and mindfully. So how do you develop CO2 tolerance? It boils down to really slowing down your breath and learning to fight the urge to want to exhale. So for example, if you practice something, which takes some getting used to, something I've been doing for a while now and able to, you breathe quite slowly. It could be 10-second inhale or even 15-second inhale, which is quite hard, and then exhale even more slowly. You prolong your exhale as long as you can, and after you're done exhaling, then you hold your breath for as long as you can. Doing many cycles of this builds up CO2 tolerance, and therefore if you slow down your breathing, you don't feel the urge for another gulp of breath. Most of the time that urge we feel, it's not the urge to get more oxygen in. This is the urge to expel the oxygen buildup. Every second of living involves these metabolical processes which are going on every single cell of your body. The energy, which is mostly stored in glucose form, is converted to ATP. The process of extracting energy from glucose involves breaking down the glucose molecule into water and carbon dioxide. So every time we need energy, which is literally every second of our existence, we are producing carbon dioxide. If our body has less tolerance for carbon dioxide, you feel this urge to quickly exhale and inhale to bring fresh oxygen in. But if you can slowly, through variety of slow breathing techniques, you can slow down your breathing and develop carbon dioxide tolerance, your overall health improves dramatically. Now, there are numerous studies going back to last 75 years where people have observed this. Dr. Butiko in Soviet Union was working with a lot of chronic patients who had diseases like asthma, anxiety, hypertension, and through different experimentation, trial and error, he realized that if he is able to coach his patients to learn slow breathing, his method is very subtle. It involves really slowing down both inhale and exhale. And funnily enough, many of the yogic tradition also mention that when you observe a yogi breathing, they're supposed to breathe so gently that they say if you keep a small feather next to their nose, the feather will not move either on inhale or exhale. Butiko method is somewhat similar, where you engage in a very, very slow, soft, gentle inhale, which may last anywhere from between 5 to 15, 20 seconds. Similarly, exhale, which may last even longer. The patients who practice this over weeks and months notice considerable improvement in their overall health. A lot of symptoms of their chronic disease start to abate. In some cases, it even got reversed, which again just reinforces the fact that how incredibly powerful breathing can be. I work with Arjun. One of the goals we have set for ourselves, which I think Arjun is able to do fairly easily, it will take me some work, is to be able to have a breathing practice where one can inhale slowly for 30 seconds and exhale slowly for 30 seconds. So entire 1 minute cycle for one breath. If you ask me or if you challenge me to do that, I can do that right now for maybe 1 or 2 breaths. But the challenge is to be able to do 10 breaths in a row over 10 minutes. So 10 total breath, 30 second inhale, 30 second exhale for 10 minutes. If you have not practiced deliberately, I don't think most of us can do that. But being able to get there, that journey can in the process make your breathing so much more deliberate, mindful, and strengthen all biological processes involved in breathing, where you can be this breathing champion and anchor breathing as one of the superpowers that you can tap into whenever you need to. I have to mention how critical breathing is as a gateway to any meditation practice. Again, we all know controlling our mind is very difficult. Buddhist monks have called this monkey mind tendency, where our mind loves going from one thought to another, keeps jumping just like a monkey jumping from one branch to another. We all love to have some thought control, being able to control our mind, but that's a difficult journey. And the very first step to start there, people realize, is to start with your breath. So if you go into any beginner meditation practice, people will ask you to just pay attention to your breath. Like no fancy thought controls and all of that, just pay attention to your breath. And because we are exploiting that link that breath has between our conscious mind to unconscious mind, by consciously paying attention to our breath, we are also training our mind to slowly learn how to be in this thoughtless meditative state. So you can start with, something as simple as just even one slow, deliberate, mindful breath, paying attention maybe 10 breaths, 20 breaths. When you're starting your meditation practice, general advice that's given is just pay attention to your breath, notice everything, all the subtleties and nuances of inhaling your breath, holding your breath, exhaling your breath, the sensation you feel on your nose. And it's quite a simple hack to be able to get into somewhat meditative start by just paying attention to your breath. Eventually, you can do a lot of things with your breath. And it's almost like a crutch. When people learn meditation, at some point, the object of focus can shift from breathing to something else. It could be scanning your body. It could be paying attention to an object. It could be paying attention to your own thoughts, or what's known as all the 7 different chakras in the body, which have their own belief system and possibly some science around it. So all those paths become available to you by starting with paying some deliberate attention to your breath. Dr. Andrew Huberman, who has done incredible work over the last 5 years in popularizing science of health, has done 2 full episodes on breath. I listened to these episodes few years ago. I re-listened to them, and every time I learn about science of breathing, I am both energized and shocked at, on one hand, how incredibly powerful this tool is. On the other hand, how still so few people practice. James Nestor in his book and across various talks about how most of us have become chronic breathers. In fact, one of the quite shocking things about that is because we are not using breathing well, our jaws don't develop properly. That's why most people end up with these crooked teeth. These days, what do you call those things? Yeah. These days, almost rite of passage for all teenagers to get those aligners to fix your teeth. But if you go back few hundred years ago, and people have done that. They have examined skulls. The moment you go earlier than Industrial Revolution, there almost no example of crooked teeth. People will breathe through nose, their jaws will develop properly. They'll also chew a lot of food, which again does a lot for the physiology of both the jaws and the nostrils. We are born to be naturally good breathers and having good jaws. That's what evolution has selected us for. But last 200 years of industrially processed food, bad environment around us, a lot of distractions has kind of made all of us as chronic bad breathers, bad chewers of food, owners of bad jaws, which now require surgeries and aligners to fix. It's quite a travesty. But good news is, breathing is a portal to be able to do something about that. In my experience, I've seen just few weeks of deliberate breathing, something as little as 10 minutes of breathing exercise. And the good thing about breathing is you don't have to go to a gym. If you commute, you can do in the car. If you are in a long flight, you can do it as many times as you want. And trust me, it will also calm you down. These days, a lot of fear of flying, a lot of anxiety. So breathing will also not only help address that, but also in these moments where you're really not busy doing something else, if you are able to cultivate these breathing practices, you can slowly and firmly take control of your health, and you will be surprised with the changes bring about in your mood to begin with, your ability to deal with stress, able to deal with difficult situation, to manage your anger, to not get upset when things don't go your way. You will also see incredible performance boost in your gym workouts. Most people, when they engage in deliberate breathing exercise, they see anywhere between 10 to 30% improvement in their lifting capacity, their aerobic capacity, their VO2 max, and rightly so. I bet there is no exercise you can do which does not involve heavy breathing. Now, if your lungs and diaphragm are the foundation and you are able to strengthen these using breathing techniques, you should not be surprised that it translates into significant performance boost. It's a free tool that's available to all of us. It's very easy to learn, very easy to practice whenever and wherever you want to. You need to be a little careful. There are broadly two sets of breathing exercises. One which gets you in this hyperventilated state where you feel the surge of energy. Those kind of exercises are better done first half of the day, and then a lot of these relaxing exercises which calms you down, activates your parasympathetic nervous system. They're better done towards second half of the day. If you engage in something like Yoga Nidra, doing it towards the end of the day, it will put you in deep, relaxed state, which is great precursor for falling asleep, having a really good, restful sleep throughout the night. But the thing I want to emphasize that among all possible health and wellness tools, this is probably by far the highest ROI tool you will come across. As I said, it only takes 10 minutes a day, can be done anytime, anywhere, and the benefits are almost instantaneous. You absolutely start feeling great after just a few handful of breaths if you do it regularly throughout the day. And what I learned from Arjun, what I read in Science of Breathing and Ancient Practice of Breathing is, for people who engage in breathing exercise regularly, eventually it becomes part of your everyday life. You automatically slow down your breathing pattern. You automatically start to have a fallback mechanism. The moment you feel certain emotion, you tap into the corresponding breath work to be able to regulate that particular mental state. This is an incredible superpower. I would love to continue to improve my relationship with breath, explore the entire diversity of breathing exercises that are available for us, understand what works best for me in what situation, and have it be integral part of my life. Hopefully this episode has convinced you to also try out various type of breathing techniques and hopefully incorporate some of those in your life. You will be happy for having one more superpower in your life. At SparX, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to SparX on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.